What happens when one of television's most beloved hosts faces off against a guest who refuses to play by the rules? In just 36 seconds, a single comment would turn a friendly chat into the most shocking moment in talk show history. Graham Norton had seen it all. Decades in the business meant he could handle anyone, from Hollywood legends to pop stars with egos the size of planets. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold on his famous red couch. The studio lights were warm and inviting as always. The audience sat eagerly in their seats, excited for another evening of witty banter and celebrity stories. Graham stood at his desk, his trademark grin lighting up the room as he welcomed his viewers. "Tonight we have a very special guest," Graham announced, his voice carrying that familiar Irish lilt that audiences had grown to love. "Please welcome Meghan Markle." The applause was polite but enthusiastic as Meghan walked onto the set. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's cars and carried herself with an air of supreme confidence. She sat down on the couch, crossing her legs and offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Meghan, wonderful to have you here," Graham said warmly, settling into his chair. "How are you finding life these days?" "Well, Graham," Meghan began, her voice measured and controlled, "it's certainly been interesting. Not everyone understands what it's like to live under such scrutiny." Graham nodded sympathetically. "I can only imagine. Now, you've been working on several projects lately. Can you tell us about that?" Meghan shifted in her seat, and something in her demeanor changed. "You know, Graham, before we get into all that, I think we need to address something." The host raised his eyebrows slightly, still smiling, but clearly caught off guard. "Oh, what's that?" "The way you introduced me," Meghan said, her tone sharpening. "It was rather basic, don't you think? I expected more from someone of your supposed caliber." A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. Graham's smile remained fixed, but his eyes showed a flicker of surprise. "I'm sorry, I thought it was perfectly lovely. How would you have preferred to be introduced?" "Perhaps with a bit more respect for everything I've accomplished," Meghan replied, sitting up straighter. "I'm not just another celebrity stopping by for a chat. Yeah, I've changed the conversation around so many important issues." Graham leaned back in his chair, maintaining his composure like the professional he was. "Of course, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about all of that. That's why you're here." "Are we, though?" Meghan interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "Because it seems to me like you're more interested in treating this like some sort of comedy hour, rather than giving proper attention to the work I'm doing." The audience fell silent. This wasn't the playful banter they were used to. This was something else entirely. Graham's expression remained calm, though anyone who knew him well could see he was working to maintain that composure. "Meghan, I assure you, we take all our guests seriously. This show has always been a place where people can relax and have a good conversation." "Relax?" Meghan's laugh was sharp and humorless. "That's exactly the problem, Graham. Some of us can't just relax. Some of us have real responsibilities, real platforms that we're using to make actual change in the world. Not everyone has the luxury of sitting around making jokes all day." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Camera operators exchanged worried glances. The producer in the control room was likely having a panic attack. Graham took a slow breath, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "I think you might be misunderstanding what we do here. Yes, we have fun, but we also have meaningful conversations. We've discussed everything from politics to mental health to social justice on this very couch. With your little jokes peppered throughout, I'm sure," Meghan shot back, diminishing the seriousness of it all. "Actually," Graham said, and now there was a hint of steel in his usually jovial voice, "humor doesn't diminish important topics. It makes them accessible. It helps people engage with difficult subjects. That's something I've learned over many years of doing this." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. Yes, you've been doing this forever. We all know. You're a legend, an institution, All of that. But maybe it's time to evolve, Graham. Maybe it's time to recognize that not everyone wants to be part of your little comedy routine. The audience was completely silent now. Several people looked genuinely uncomfortable. Graham folded his hands on his desk. Meghan, I'm not entirely sure what's happening here, but I think we might have gotten off on the wrong foot. Why don't we start over? Tell us about the projects you're passionate about. Oh, now you want to hear about my projects? Meghan's voice dripped with sarcasm. How generous of you, Graham. How very magnanimous. Should I be grateful that you're allowing me to speak about my own work on your show? That's not what I meant at all, Graham replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. You're here as a guest. The floor has always been yours. That's how interviews work. Meghan laughed again, that same bitter sound. The floor is mine? Really? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you control everything. When I speak, what I speak about, how long I get to speak. That's not really giving me the floor, is it? Graham's famous smile had completely vanished now. Meghan, I'm going to be very direct with you. I've been nothing but welcoming since you walked through that door. I've treated you with the same respect I treat every single guest who sits on that couch. If you came here with some sort of agenda or chip on your shoulder, that's not my responsibility. Respect? Meghan stood up suddenly, her voice rising. You call this respect? Sitting here in your comfortable little studio, with your adoring audience, acting like you're doing me some kind of favor by having me on. The audience gasped. Graham stood as well, his posture straight and dignified. I think, he said slowly, carefully, that you might want to take a moment to reconsider how you're speaking to me. Now, I understand that you've been through a lot, and I understand that public life can be challenging. But that doesn't give you the right to come onto my show and attack me for absolutely no reason. No reason? Meghan's voice hit a new pitch. The reason is that people like you have been treating people like me as entertainment for years. We're not real people to you, are we? We're just content. Just something to fill your airtime. Graham's jaw tightened. That's absolutely not true. And if you genuinely believe that, then I'm very sorry for you. Every person who sits on this couch is treated as a human being with stories to tell and experiences to share. That includes you, despite how you're behaving right now. How I'm behaving? Meghan took a step forward. How dare you criticize how I'm behaving when you've been condescending to me since I walked out here? I have been nothing of the sort, Graham said firmly, and I think everyone in this room knows that. I welcomed you warmly. I asked you about your life and your work, and you've responded with nothing but hostility and accusations. Meghan pointed a finger at him. Because I'm tired of playing these games, Graham. I'm tired of pretending that shows like this are anything more than shallow entertainment designed to keep people distracted from real issues. The host took a deep breath, and when he spoke, his voice was measured but unmistakably done with the situation. You know what, Meghan? I've been doing this show for a very long time. I've interviewed thousands of people. Some of them have become friends. Some of them I've never seen again. But every single one of them understood something fundamental that you apparently don't. And what's that? Meghan challenged. That conversation is a two-way street, Graham said. That respect is something you give in order to receive. That being a guest on someone's show means meeting them halfway, not attacking them for having the audacity to invite you in the first place. Meghan's face flushed red. I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to stand here and be lectured by you about respect when you clearly have none for me, or what I represent. What you represent. Graham's voice rose for the first time. You represent yourself, Meghan. You walked out here representing yourself, and what you've shown everyone in this room, everyone watching at home. He is someone who seems to think the world owes them something, someone who can't handle a simple, friendly conversation without turning it into a confrontation. How dare you, Meghan hissed. You have no idea what I've been through. No idea what it's like to be constantly judged, constantly criticized. Actually, Graham said quietly, I have some idea. I'm a gay man from Ireland who built a career in entertainment. I know something about being judged. But I also know that carrying around anger and resentment and taking it out on people who are trying to be kind to you isn't the answer. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the couch. I'm not going to stand here and be psychoanalyzed by a talk show host. No one's psychoanalyzing you, Graham replied. I'm simply pointing out that you came onto this show with an attitude. And when I tried to move past it and have a genuine conversation, you doubled down. That's not on me, Meghan. That's on you. This is ridiculous, Meghan said, her voice shaking slightly. Absolutely ridiculous. I came here in good faith, ready to discuss important issues, and instead I'm being attacked. Graham shook his head slowly. You're not being attacked. You're being held accountable for your behavior. There's a difference, and the fact that you can't see that is honestly quite sad. Meghan's eyes flashed with anger. You know what's sad, Graham? That you've spent your entire career making a mockery of serious conversations, and now you have the nerve to act like you're taking some kind of moral high ground. The host's expression hardened. That's enough. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to be understanding. But I'm not going to stand here and let you insult me, my show, and my career, because you're having some sort of personal crisis. Personal crisis? Meghan laughed harshly. This isn't a personal crisis. This is me finally saying what needs to be said. That shows like this are part of the problem. That hosts like you, with your charm and your wit and your carefully crafted persona, are just as complicit in the superficiality of modern media as anyone else. Graham walked around his desk, standing tall and composed despite the chaos unfolding. Meghan, I'm going to ask you very directly. Do you want to sit down, take a breath, and try to have an actual conversation? Or do you want to continue down this path? What path is that? Meghan demanded. The path where you leave the studio, having made a complete fool of yourself, Graham said bluntly. Because that's where this is heading. You're so busy being angry and defensive that you're not even hearing yourself. You're not making points. You're not standing up for anything. You're just lashing out. Meghan's hands trembled slightly. I don't need your condescension. It's not condescension, Graham said quietly. It's honesty. Something you seem to be struggling with right now. You're upset about something, clearly. But whatever it is, it has nothing to do with me or this show. We've done nothing to deserve this treatment. You've done nothing. Meghan's voice cracked. You've sat there, in your comfortable position of power, controlling the narrative, deciding what's important and what's not. Who deserves respect and who doesn't. Graham sighed deeply. I've sat here trying to give you a platform to share your voice. That's literally what this entire show is built on, giving people a chance to be heard. But you can't be heard if all you're doing is shouting accusations. Maybe accusations are all I have left, Meghan said, and for a moment, her mask slipped and something vulnerable flickered across her face. Graham's expression softened slightly. Then I'm genuinely sorry about whatever has brought you to that place. But I can't help you with it. No one in this room can. This isn't therapy, Meghan. It's a talk show. And you're here as a guest, which means there are basic standards of behavior that need to be maintained. Meghan straightened her shoulders. Standards, of course. Your standards. Your rules. On your show. Yes, Graham said simply. My show, which you agreed to come on. No one forced you to be here. You accepted the invitation, knowing full well what this program is and what it's always been. Maybe I accepted hoping it could be something more, Meghan said quietly. Then that's on you for having unrealistic expectations, Graham replied, not unkindly. I'm proud of this show. I'm proud of the conversations we've had, the laughter we've shared, the way we've made people feel welcome and comfortable. I'm not going to apologize for that, or pretend it's something it's not just to satisfy your vision of what television should be. Meghan stared at him for a long moment. So, that's it then. You're just going to stand there and act like you've done nothing wrong? I haven't done anything wrong, Graham said firmly. I invited you here with an open heart and an open mind. You're the one who turned it into a battle. And honestly, I'm tired of fighting with you about nothing. So I'm going to make this very simple. Oh, please do, Meghan said sarcastically. Graham's voice was calm but absolute. You can either sit back down on that couch, compose yourself, and we can try to salvage something positive from this experience. Or you can leave. Those are your options. But what you cannot do is continue to stand in my studio and hurl insults at me while I'm trying to maintain some semblance of professionalism. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the studio was fixed on Meghan, waiting to see what she would do. She looked at the couch, then at Graham, then at the audience. Her expression cycled through anger, embarrassment, and in something that might have been regret, but pride, that stubborn pride, won out in the end. You know what, Graham, she said, her voice tight. I don't need this. I don't need your show. I don't need your audience. And I certainly don't need your fake hospitality. It was never fake, Graham said quietly. But if you need to believe that to make yourself feel better about how you've acted tonight, then go ahead. Meghan's face flushed deeper. You're unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Standing there acting like you're the victim in all this, when you've been passive-aggressive since I sat down. I've been nothing but direct, Graham countered. If you experience that as passive aggression, perhaps you should examine why you're so defensive. I'm leaving, Meghan announced suddenly. I'm not going to waste another second in this toxic environment. Graham simply nodded. That's your choice to make. Yes, it is my choice, Meghan said, as if she'd scored some kind of point. At least I have enough self-respect to remove myself from a situation where I'm not valued. You were valued, Graham said, and there was genuine sadness in his voice now. You came here valued, but value is a two-way street, just like respect. You can't demand it while refusing to give it. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she turned on her heel and began walking toward the exit. Graham watched her go, his expression unreadable. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, gasp, or simply process what they'd just witnessed. Just before reaching the edge of the set, Meghan turned back one final time. You know what your problem is, Graham? He waited, not taking the bait, just letting her speak. Your problem is that you've been doing this so long, you've forgotten what it's like to be real. You've forgotten what it's like to care about something beyond entertainment value and ratings. You've become exactly what you probably never wanted to be. Comfortable. Safe. Irrelevant. Graham absorbed the words without flinching. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady and sure. I'd rather be comfortable, safe, and supposedly irrelevant than bitter, angry, and desperate to prove something to people who don't owe me anything. I built this show on kindness, on making people laugh, on creating a space where everyone feels welcome. If you see that as irrelevant, then we have very different values. Meghan's hands clenched around her purse. Different values. That's one way to put it. It's the truth, Graham said. And somewhere deep down, I think you know that. I think you know you came in here looking for a fight, and I think you know that has nothing to do with me or anything I said or did. But you're too proud to admit it. So you're going to walk out of here pretending you were the wronged party. Pretending? Meghan's voice rose again. I'm not pretending anything. This has been a disaster from start to finish, and it's because of your attitude, your dismissiveness, your complete inability to treat me with basic human decency. Graham walked slowly back to his desk and placed both hands on it, leaning forward slightly. Meghan, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I have treated you with nothing but decency. I welcomed you warmly. I asked you genuine questions. I tried to redirect when you became hostile. I remained calm when you attacked me. And even now, as you're hurling these false accusations, I'm still standing here trying to reach some part of you that might be willing to acknowledge reality. Your reality, Meghan spat. Not mine. No, Graham said firmly. The reality. The objective truth of what happened here tonight. You walked onto this set with an agenda. You decided before you even sat down that you were going to find fault with everything I did. And when I didn't give you a legitimate reason to be upset, you invented reasons. That's not my perception. That's what happened. Everyone in this room saw it. Meghan looked at the audience, many of whom were nodding slightly in agreement with Graham. Her expression darkened further. Of course they're on your side, she said. They're your audience. They worship you. They'd agree with anything you said. That's incredibly dismissive of these people, Graham said, gesturing to the crowd. They're intelligent individuals who can make their own judgments, and I think if you asked any one of them right now what they witnessed, they'd tell you the truth, which is that I tried my absolute best to be a good host to a guest who seemed determined to make that impossible. Meghan shook her head. I can't believe this. I actually can't believe this is happening. Neither can I, Graham admitted. In all my years doing this show, I've never had an experience quite like this one, and I hope I never do again. Well, don't worry, Meghan said, her voice dripping with venom. You won't, because I'm done. I'm walking out of here, and you can explain to your viewers why your show was such a disaster tonight. Graham's expression remained calm. I don't think I'll need to explain much. I think they saw everything quite clearly. And with that, Meghan turned and walked off the set. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor, each step echoing in the silent studio. The cameras followed her until she disappeared through the exit, and then slowly panned back to Graham. He stood there for a moment, just breathing, processing what had occurred. Then he looked at his audience, at the camera, and a small, tired smile crossed his face. Well, he said softly, that was certainly something. The audience erupted, not in polite applause, but in genuine, in supportive applause. They stood, some of them, clapping for their host who had handled an impossible situation with as much grace as anyone could have mustered. Graham raised a hand, quieting them gently. Thank you. Truly, I appreciate that more than you know. But I want to say something important before we move on. The room fell silent again. I don't take pleasure in what just happened, Graham continued. I don't feel victorious or vindicated. I feel sad. Sad that someone came here tonight carrying so much anger that they couldn't see past it. Sad that what could have been a lovely conversation turned into something painful and uncomfortable. And sad that somewhere along the line, someone convinced that person that being combative was the same as being strong. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But I also want to be clear about something. Kindness is not weakness. Humor is not shallowness. And creating a space where people can laugh and connect and feel human for a little while is not irrelevant. It never has been, and it never will be. We all need joy. We all need lightness. We all need moments where we can set aside the weight of the world and just be. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. What you witnessed tonight was someone who has forgotten that, Graham said quietly, or maybe never learned it, and that's tragic, but it doesn't change who we are or what we do here. We'll continue to welcome guests with open arms. We'll continue to have conversations filled with laughter and honesty. We'll continue to be exactly what we've always been. A place where people can come and be themselves. He looked directly into the camera. So if you're at home watching this, and you're feeling confused or upset about what you just saw, please know that you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people come into our lives or onto our screens, carrying storms we can't see. And sometimes those storms break in ways that are shocking and hurtful. But that doesn't mean we stop being who we are. That doesn't mean we let someone else's pain turn us bitter or defensive. Graham smiled then, a real smile, warm and genuine. We're going to take a very short break, he said, and when we come back, we're going to continue with our evening. We have wonderful guests still to come, and I refuse to let this experience overshadow the good things still ahead. Because that's what resilience looks like. Not pretending bad things didn't happen, but choosing not to let them define us. The studio erupted in applause again as they cut to commercial. Behind the scenes, producers and crew members rushed to Graham's side, checking on him, asking if he was all right. He assured them he was fine, though his hands shook slightly when he reached for his water glass. The remaining guests that evening were wonderful. The conversations flowed naturally, and Graham returned to his usual brilliant self. But everyone who was there that night, everyone who witnessed what happened, would never forget it. They'd never forget how Graham Norton, faced with unprovoked hostility and personal attacks, remained dignified, honest, and true to himself. And they'd never forget the woman who walked onto one of television's most beloved shows and managed to make herself the most disliked person in the room in record time, all while claiming everyone else was the problem,